Motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Speaker. And yes, the arts do matter for the member for Gellibrand, but I don't just want to support international artists, including the great Reginald Dwight, Sir Elton John. Speaker, I want to support Australian artists as well. I want to support Australian artists in making sure that they have a career, a future and an opportunity because, believe it or not, Deputy Speaker, sorry, you're in the chair, Speaker, my background originally is actually in the arts. You're still an actor? My first degree at university was fine art, majoring in painting. And I was going to pursue a career as a painter and a printmaker. But circumstances intervened and a passion for public policy and the good of the nation took priority. But it doesn't change the fact that there are millions of Australians who have chosen to make the arts their career. They've chosen to make their arts a career, whether through their passions for singing and performance, and yes, sometimes including people in this chamber, but also, of course, those people who paint for a living and who create and reflect society back to itself. And that's the enduring power of the arts, is that it prompts us to reflect on what we do. And I don't mean we as in those people in this chamber, but the whole of the community. It's an opportunity to speak discomforts, injustices, to bring about joy and hope and aspiration for many people. And the role the arts play in our community and enriching our community is profound. And I don't think anybody in this chamber, I would hope, would dispute that. And they, of course, have been at the forefront of the worst burden of the lockdowns, particularly in the great state of Victoria, the home of the arts and the cultural appreciation of this country, the home of our literary traditions in this country, the home of basically, let's face it, most things that are good except for perhaps one government at the moment in this great country. And of course, it's critical to our tourism sector, particularly in Victoria, because people travel from all across the nation and sometimes internationally to see some of the most fantastic institutions, whether it's the National Gallery of Victoria or the live performances at the City Music Hall and everywhere else. And that's why the Morrison government has been so clear in supporting the arts sector throughout this pandemic by putting a whopping $750 million on the table to assist support for the arts across the country. Because we know that they're doing it tough. And we know that there's a trade-off where when artists can't perform, they can't get income. But thankfully the arts community has been adaptive and seen the opportunity to move what they're providing online and into the community, so of course they can perform to those people, many of whom are relying on the arts community in their isolation. I can say with absolute confidence, Speaker, during my 2-week quarantine, I did consume some of the cultural products of the nation to make sure that I kept myself entertained. And that's exactly what a lot of families in Victoria are doing right now. They're relying on our television and content creators. They're relying on people streaming performances into their homes. And they're relying on a reflection back of our own country to ourselves to understand where we're placed across the world. So that's why it's so critical and so important to support the arts. The biggest problem or the biggest challenge we've had during this pandemic has been the deception, sadly, from some of the unions about the sector and their access to the JobKeeper program, where, of course, there has been no such exclusion of the arts sector. It is just dishonest to say so. There was one sector that was excluded from the JobKeeper program, the banking sector. That was one section of the private enterprise that was excluded. So they have no right to complain, but they were definitely excluded. The arts sector was not. And despite that, the union continued to mislead and deceive their members about what was going on, and to the detriment often of people seeking and working towards what they could do to support themselves. Well, this government isn't going to give in to deception. This government is going to support the arts community now and into the future as part of the cultural life of the nation.
Question is that